My wife looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Either I get half of your inheritance or I am filing for divorce." I stared at this woman, the same woman I thought would be by my side until my last breath. My father Harold had been gone for only 3 weeks. I was still drowning in grief, still waking up forgetting he was dead. And there she was, not offering comfort, but handing me a list of demands. She thought I would crumble under the pressure. She was wrong. Before I tell you how I turned the tables on her, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. Hit that like button if you have ever had someone show their true colors at the worst possible time. And make sure you subscribe if you want to hear how her lawyer's face looked when he realized his client had just played herself. But to understand why this moment hurts so much, I need to take you back to when Lauren and I first met. 7 years ago, I was 27 years old, fresh out of college, with a software engineering degree, and my first real job. I was sitting in a small coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, working on some code on my laptop when it happened. A woman bumped into my table and her iced latte spilled all over my keyboard. She gasped, apologized about 15 times in 30 seconds, and insisted on buying me a new coffee. Her name was Lauren. She was 25, had just moved from California, and worked in marketing for a local company. I remember thinking she was beautiful, but more than that, she seemed genuine. No pretense, no games. Just a clumsy, sweet woman who felt terrible about ruining my afternoon. We exchanged numbers that day, and within a week, we were on our first official date. For 2 years, we dated like any normal couple. Lauren always said the same thing whenever money came up. "I do not care about money, Edmund. I just want us." And I believed her. Why would I not? We went camping in tents that leaked when it rained. We ate cheap pizza and watched movies on my old Netflix account. We did not need fancy restaurants or expensive vacations. We had each other, and that felt like enough. When I proposed, she cried. When we got married, it was a small ceremony with about 50 guests in my father's backyard. Harold stood beside me as my best man, his eyes misty as he watched me say my vows. After the ceremony, he pulled me aside and said, "She seems like a good woman, son. I am happy for you." I hugged him tight. That was one of the happiest days of my life. The first 5 years of marriage felt normal. I got promoted a few times, and our household income grew steadily. Lauren started asking questions I did not think much about at the time. She wanted to know about my father's antique store. How was business? Did he own the building? Had he thought about retirement? I assumed she was just being interested in my family. Looking back now, I can see what she was really doing. She was gathering information. My father Harold had raised me alone since I was 15. My mother Dorothy passed away from cancer when I was just a teenager, and Dad never remarried. He poured everything into his small antique shop on the outskirts of Portland. He lived, simply drove an old truck, and never talked about money. The store is not much, he always said, but it is honest work. I never questioned it. I never thought to ask how much he was actually worth. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was 6 in the morning on a Tuesday. The hospital told me my father had suffered a massive stroke in his sleep. He was 68 years old. By the time I got there, he was already gone. I cannot describe what that felt like. It was like someone had reached into my chest and removed something vital. I did not cry at first. I just felt numb, hollow, like I was watching my own life from outside my body. Lauren was there. She held my hand at the hospital, stood beside me at the funeral, and slept next to me every night. But something felt off. On the very first day, before we had even left the hospital, she asked me about the will. 2 weeks after the funeral, I sat in the office of Bernard Whitmore, my father's attorney and longtime friend. Bernard was 58, sharp as a tack, and had known my family for decades. He handed me a folder and told me to sit down before I read it. I did not understand why until I saw the numbers. My father had left me everything. The antique store, which turned out to be worth $1.2 million because of rare items he had collected over 40 years. The house on the outskirts of town valued at $800,000, and his savings and investment accounts totaling $2.3 million. In total, my father's estate was worth over $4 million. I sat there in shock. I had no idea. My simple, humble father had been a quiet millionaire the entire time. When I got home that evening, I told Lauren, I watched her face transform. Her eyes widened, not with sympathy but with something else. Something hungry. The first words out of her mouth were not about my father or how I was feeling. She asked, "So, how much exactly?" That night she could not stop talking about the money. She wanted to sell the antique store immediately. She thought we should sell my father's house too, and use the money to buy a bigger place in a nicer neighborhood. She mentioned a new car she had been eyeing, a BMW or maybe a Mercedes. She talked about a trip to Europe, so she could relax and recover from all the stress. I told her I wanted to keep the store. It was my father's legacy, his life's work. She looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language and said, "Do not be sentimental, Edmund. Dead people do not care about stores." I felt a chill run down my spine. This was not the woman I married. Or maybe it was, and I had just never seen this side of her before. That night I could not sleep. Something felt deeply wrong, but I told myself I was just grieving. I told myself Lauren was just being practical. I told myself a lot of things that were not true. 2 weeks after the reading of the will, Lauren became a different person entirely. It was like someone had flipped a switch. Every single day, she had new demands, new plans, new ideas for how to spend money that was not even fully transferred yet. She wanted the antique store sold by the end of the month. She had already contacted a real estate agent without telling me. She wanted us to move to a gated community in the wealthy part of town. She wanted a luxury car. She wanted a vacation to Italy and France, first-class flights, 5-star hotels, the works. When I came home from work one afternoon, I found strangers in my father's store. A man with a clipboard was taking photos and measurements, while Lauren stood nearby chatting with him like they were old friends. I asked her what was going on. She smiled and said she was just trying to help. "You are too emotional to think clearly right now," she told me. "Let me handle the practical stuff." I did not say anything, but inside, something shifted. My best friend Derek, who worked at the same company as me, was the first person to voice what I was afraid to admit. We were grabbing lunch when he looked at me with concern and said, "Dude, she is acting like she won the lottery, not like she lost a father-in-law." I wanted to defend her. I wanted to explain it away. But the words would not come because I knew he was right. Then came the dinner that changed everything. Lauren invited her younger sister Natalie over for a meal. Natalie was 28, talkative, and had a habit of saying too much when she drank. That night she had several glasses of wine. I went to the kitchen to grab another bottle, and that is when I heard them talking. I stopped just outside the doorway, hidden from view but able to hear every word. Natalie's voice was slightly slurred but clear enough. "So your plan actually worked? You waited 7 years for this?" Lauren laughed softly. "I told you. I knew his dad had money from the start. The store was worth more than it looked. You just had to know what to look for." "But 7 years," Natalie sounded impressed. "That is commitment. It is called investment," Lauren replied. "Now I just need him to sign everything over. He is so naive he probably will." I stood there frozen. My heart felt like it had stopped beating. 7 years. Our entire relationship, our entire marriage, had been a calculated lie. I thought back to that first meeting in the coffee shop, the spilled latte, the nervous apology. Had that been planned too? I thought about how she always asked about my father, how she always wanted to visit the store, how she was always so friendly to Harold. It was all part of a scheme. I wanted to walk in there and confront her. I wanted to scream. But something held me back. A voice in my head, maybe my father's voice, told me to stay calm, to think, to plan. So, I took a deep breath, picked up the wine bottle, and walked into the kitchen like I had heard nothing. Lauren and Natalie both went silent the moment they saw me. I smiled and asked what they were talking about. Lauren's face was perfectly composed. "Oh, nothing," she said. "Just sister stuff." I nodded. "That is nice." Inside, my decision was already made. Over the next week I watched and waited. I paid attention to Lauren's phone, her behavior, her conversations. I noticed she was texting someone with the initials C.H. frequently. The messages I glimpsed mentioned things like making sure to get at least half, and he will not know what hit him. I did some digging and discovered that C.H. was Craig Holloway, a divorce attorney known for aggressive tactics. Lauren had already consulted with him 2 weeks before the will was even read. She had been planning this from the moment my father died. One evening Lauren sat me down with a serious expression. She said we needed to talk about our future. I asked what she meant. She explained that she wanted us to combine everything. She thought my inheritance should be in both our names. It was only fair, she argued, since we were married. I asked her what would happen if I said no. Her face hardened. Then maybe this marriage is not working anymore, she said.